This week on the Virtual Skeptics, waiting for it. Bob wants to let you in on money-making opportunity. Looking forward to that. Eve wants to hear your life story, but she doesn't believe it. Barbara's got some cute animals. And Tim is causing spurious correlations. I'm your host, Gregory, and I'm my own boss. And I'm also saving. Yeah, and you laughed over top of my joke, which is fine, because the first part was the funnier part. Hi, this is Virtual Skeptics. You're watching? Hi. See, I'm not going to apologize this week. Let's see. First order of business is to introduce these people that are like hanging out here with me. Hi, guys. They're just interlopers. They kind of came off the internet somewhere. But I kind of know who they are, so let me introduce first up Bob. Hi, Bob. Bob Blaskiewicz, CSI's conspiracy guy, web columnist, blogger for Skeptical Humanities, and Swift blog contributor. Next up, we have Eve, editor and blogger at Skeptical Humanities and contributor to Skepticality. Tim Farley, currently muted, and Jay Rift, past fellow blogger and at Skepticality contributor and creator of What's the Harm? And finally, but not least, see, I messed that up, but hey, Barbara Drescher, JRIF, Educational Programs Consultant, occasional blogger at ICBS everywhere. I said that correctly. And contributor to Swift, and the odds must be crazy. Welcome to... Hey, everyone say hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Yep. No?
I didn't say hi. I said hey.
Hi. Hey. Hey. If you're watching, we're going to talk about some stuff, and you're gonna pay attention, hopefully. And if you want to say something, well, let me put it this way: if you ask a question, and we'll try to get you on the air. If you say something and it's funny, if we deem it's funny, we might mention you. So make sure you're working on that comedy routine there, people. But do it on Twitter with hashtag Virtual Skeptics, or use the Q&A app for questions on Google+. And finally, you can comment on the YouTube, and we will pay attention, hopefully. Let's see. First up, Tim. Tim's going to give us our trivia question for the week. And he's muted.
Myself because I was typing.
There you go.
But he's pretty.
Sorry about that.
He's pretty.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I guess it was, on Skepticality, I talked a little bit about Skeptic Awards because Skepticality had just won one. And there was one award I didn't mention, and it is called the In the Trenches Award. And it has been given out since 2004, so for about a decade, every year, this award has been given out to a skeptic at what annual skeptic event? In the Trenches Award.
Yeah, I know of this one, but I'm not going to give any hints. So there you go. Thank you, Tim, for that question. Also, we have this kind of informal guest live thing. If you guys can figure out what's on the monitors behind me and mention it in Twitter or something like that, we'll give you a pat in the back, a virtual pat in the back, just like we'll if you answer the trivia question. And let's see. Let's get moving. Bob's up first. Bob is going to talk about pyramids.
Yes. Pyramid power, but of a different type. So it was a hell of a week in multi-level marketing. No fewer than 3 stories about this dodgy business model appeared on Doubtful News this week, which is a lot. MLM, multi-level marketing, it can be a pyramid scheme, or it could be something that's called direct marketing, but it's not my primary area of interest. My understanding of how these things work is that instead of recruiting people to sell goods, you're recruiting people to sell goods to people that they recruit. Does that make sense?
No.
Damn it! I really hoped it would. My notes are mangled.
No. I've heard this. You're supposed to start your own business, right?
Start your own business, and then you get people who you will supply their businesses.
Well, I mean, your best customers are your family and friends, right? Not that they're going to hate you after that or anything.
Well, exactly. They're going to hate you like crazy because you're irritating, and you can't keep selling them and selling them.
Hey,
well, okay. In my case, it probably wouldn't be that much of a loss. But yeah. These business practices dramatically favor people at the top of the pyramid, and people downstream tend to lose their investments. People are attracted by the promise of being independent business owners, and they succumb to high-pressure pitches, promises of fabulous returns on investments buoyed by anecdotes. And the problem is that the risk of this venture does not lie with the company. It's been shifted from the company downstream to the people, who are being recruited. And this is essentially the same problem with so-called direct marketing. The vendors have absorbed risk and not the people they're working for. They are unsavory business arrangements. Anyway, the first story out this week came on the heels of a NBC News investigation of Herbalife. It's a company that sells supplements and weight loss products. Undercover reporters for ABC went to a number of local and regional conferences, Herbalife conferences, recruiting and events and that sort of thing, where they caught Herbalife distributors making all sorts of wild claims, including claims that Herbalife could cure cancer and diabetes and heart disease, which, it can't. Hey, Eve, your cat is howling. Could you murder it?
I can't do anything. It's because you have cat food in your office.
He can't have it. It's mine.
But he knows it's in there, Bob.
Well, yeah, okay. Then put him in. Take care of him.
No, Bob.
All right. Well, then I will let him.
Roll with it, man. Roll with it.
Roll with it. It's
all right.
not that bad
So
from the center.
it's killing me. It's right in my ear. So anyway, regarding the brain tumor, one of the representatives at one of these conferences says there was a patient who had some sort of brain tumor, and, quote, she used to shake like this, and I guess there was some shaking involved, because she lost control of her motor skills to the tumor, and she said part of her cerebellum was deteriorated. If you see her now, she's like one of us here. Whatever it is that the product did, it helped her a lot. So they put it in really, sciencey terms. Also, Herbalife apparently works for lady problems. Quote, before Herbalife, said one distributor, for my bad nutrition, my body developed a tumor, and for 9 years I did not have my period, she shared. Then I met Herbalife or whatever. I started using the product. My menstruation problems go away, so I'm 40 years old, and I have my first pregnancy. It's kind of like the Holy Spirit.
I think that was Herb Alpert, not Herb.
Ooh, that's right. That's right. And then lastly, that was good. It also works for whatever syndrome this is. Quote, with these products, I've been able to alleviate my problems with headaches, anemia, and my face numbness. This is, of course, a bald lie. Herbalife is well known to exacerbate face numbness, which is a side effect of all the face palming. Thank you. Thank you. That was the long wind-up for that one.
Yes,
Okay.
That was.
Yep. Okay, so...
That was something.
Yeah,
Not sure what
yeah.
it is, but hey.
So, in response to the expose, Herbalife has decided to vigorously polish the turd. They are now implementing aggressive training about how you're not supposed to lie. Thanks, guys. Yeah. Good. I would call that
If it requires
a
training, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so
they're
next up...
sending all their people to 4th grade?
Yeah, I know.
Do the rest of us learn that?
Yeah. So next up, if you could bring up the next...
I'm just
there
putting
you go.
logos on behind you, yes.
Yeah, yeah. The next one is Amway. Specifically, the problem is that people downstream from some of Amway's top distributors, Barry Chi and Holly Chen. I hear Chi and Chen, and I think that they're, like California, what's the word I'm looking for? Dope smoking comedians? Chi and Chen? No.
Yin and Yang, maybe?
Yeah.
Nah.
One
No.
plaintiff, yes.
Yin Chang up in, I don't know, Amway.
So yeah, so people, these victims are saying that they were swindled out of money by the pair after their network, Chi and Chen's network, their husband and wife team, spread to California, Taiwanese, and Chinese communities. Apparently, the plaintiffs were prospective distributors of Amway who attended seminars or were otherwise recruited by Chi and Chen. One plaintiff, according to Courthouse News Service, quote, claims that although the defendants promised she could make hundreds of thousands or even millions in commissions, the reality is that Amway knows
Millions
its
of pennies.
business owners make closer to $200 a month. Sorry?
Millions of pennies.
Millions and millions of farthings.
Farthings.
So,
yeah.
yes. And another thing, they also allege that Chi and Chen, quote, like other high-level distributors, make most of their money through the sale of non-Amway motivational books, tapes, and seminars. What seems to have happened here is that once these people became independent business owners, they were kicked out of the Amway structure on what seemed to be false pretenses, what they alleged to be false pretenses. And the reasons for this, to me, are sort of obscure. I actually have a student who is going through, who announced to me at the beginning of the semester that he was an independent business owner, and it was Amway. One of the things he said, I said, once you make that investment, once you pay forward, what obligations do they have to you? And he's like, oh, I can sell the stuff back to them if it doesn't work out. I wonder if this is a way of forfeiting that, sticking them with the product, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but some of the things, like they used an Amazon store to sell Amway stuff, which is apparently against the rules. Or they used other people to get Amway products onto a military base. I don't know why that was a problem, but it was apparently against the rules. So they're suing these two people. And lastly, the FTC, yesterday they announced that they've reached a legal settlement that will effectively shut down Fortune High-Tech Marketing, an outfit that has targeted Spanish-speaking immigrant communities. According to the FTC announcement, quote, participants were required to pay a substantial startup cost and monthly fees to retain their positions with the company. In the course of this, the court that was arbitrating this found that 98% of participants in this group lost money. I think it was over 88%, something like that, never made back their initial investment. And what little money they did make back came from bringing other people into the organization, not by actually selling things. Over the course of its miserable existence, the company brought some 350,000 people into the fold, and it has now been hit with a judgment of about $169 million, which may be reduced after the defendants turn over $7.75 million in assets. So, this last bit, there were two stories this week that had to do with immigrant communities being targeted. I don't know if you guys remember that a couple months ago I did a Skepticality segment about people who were arrested for selling the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah.
And they targeted Italian immigrants too. That seems to be a especially vulnerable population, one that's often aspiring to be upwardly mobile and enthusiastic about the process of capitalism, and may not have the experience. They're just especially susceptible to these types of
They
things.
just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they haven't been in our culture where people actually talk about it and make fun of Amway. And
Right, yeah, that's usually the first, the best line of defense is to talk about Amway and other multi-level marketing schemes.
So is this obviously these kind of programs are pretty prevalent in America, but do these, like Amway, is that international? Is it successful in other countries?
Yeah, yes. Like the Chi and Chen, they were based out of Taiwan, as far as I can tell.
Okay, so
at the Fortune High-Tech Marketing, they were in Canada, they're in the UK and the US, and all of those entities, the Canada and UK versions and the US versions, were all hit with this fine. So apparently all of the various jurisdictions, all of the complaints are satisfied by basically shutting this place down. So, yep.
So shutting down, awesome. Yes. It's
Yep.
actually, I mean, I've read some stuff about this before because I had friends that were involved in other smaller multi-level marketing things, and it's. I mean, you have to say it's a little clever as far as taking advantage of the whole entrepreneur spirit of Americans in particular, and the idea of owning your own business. I mean, because even if you were to start your own business, I mean, 99% of them fail. And you have to start up, and I mean, there's a lot of expense starting up, and you have to get on your feet and finally become profitable at some point. So someone who sort of understands this is going to, fall into this trap. Oh, well, I don't have to write a business plan. I don't have to do all this risk. Someone's already done that for me. I can just buy into this, which I'm going to have an initial investment anyway. And then
it's only a couple $100.
Yeah.
That's the pull of franchises, I think, that franchises cost a lot more. Amway's something that you can do with just a few $100s, and
well, I mean, it's
have
the quick
control over it.
Yeah, it's the quick, cheap startup, miracle, silver bullet.
American dream.
Yeah.
The problem that I have, I've seen people get really fired up about this stuff, and they're like, this business, they're making millionaires, right? Yeah, then why don't I know any? I've known so many people. I've
had several students that have. I know immediately what they're going to say when they say something about having their own business. I know immediately that it's Amway, and without fail, it has been. These 20-somethings that, and they get into it with their parents, and it's a little scary. That young,
Seen people making the comparison, and I think, Eve, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. These multi-level marketing things get a little culty because they buy into the narrative, and they can explain away anything, and they're emotionally sold, and it feels great to be part of something, and you buy in a little bit.
Everything is awesome when you're part of a team.
Yes, exactly. That was actually a storyline on Big Love. There was a whole storyline with that, with the youngest wife trying to, be a businesswoman and be independent and so forth, and she gets sucked into this juice thing. So it's very Herbalife-like.
Interesting.
Yeah. And apparently I've experienced situations where the marketing is tied into a certain ideology as well. So you take advantage of the people who are already susceptible for.
Oh, people are already in with your group, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is how you got stuck with all those hats.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, if anybody wants to buy a hat franchise,
Yeah, and so I mean, one of the things is that you see
like a Narconon franchise.
Dark, Eve.
Thank
Very
you.
dark.
That's.
Yeah, they're having legal problems too. So.
Okie dokie. So should we move on?
Well, there was a question on Twitter. Jen Thur was asking, is all direct marketing bad? She has friends who are happy selling something called Sensi or 31. I don't know what either of those are.
The FTC does allow it, so I think it can work, but they seem to be especially susceptible to exploitive practices, is my understanding. It can be done ethically, and they give a whole. In fact, I forgot to put it on the show notes, but there's a website of advice that the FTC has. They have a page where they just tell you, this is how you try to sort them out and also think about it before you get involved with these things. Like, really think about it. Don't get wrapped up in it.
I think that's...
Some like Avon have been around forever.
Yeah.
And as far as I know...
Yeah, and I think there's a fine line between...
Often.
Yeah, I think there's a fine line between, or maybe it's you could go either way. If you stay within this the clever marketing, or if you go over to start doing the hard sell, and like if the business starts requiring you to pay it, the fees, the monthly fees just to stay in the program, that's kind of iffy, and
totally
a minimum
legit.
requirement ordering for product is kind of iffy, because you can people who can't keep up the selling quota will keep buying in and end up go broke, but obviously it's not clear cut enough for them to start making laws to outlaw all of it. So,
Yeah.
what do you think, Bob?
Yep.
What do you think, Bob?
I think that I'm done.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Bob, for that interesting discussion and story. Let's see. There was that one question, and also there's a couple of quick one. Okay, Corey, I don't understand your question. Something about two skeptics walking into a bar. What? And then there's some answers to the trivia question already, guys. Wow, you guys are quick. Who's next?
Stop being smart.
I know. Stop it. Let's see. Tim's next, and he's going to talk about something that I've been looking forward to, because I love this site. It's been all over the internet for like the last week.
Yeah.
And it's funny and interesting, and it illustrates a good point. So go for it, Tim.
Yeah, it's a site. It apparently went online on Thursday or Friday of last week without much fanfare. It's not anybody we've ever heard of before, not like one of the skeptics that you know about. And he doesn't even have a really fancy name for the site. It's just his name, tylervegan.com. And if you go to my first slide, I've got just a screenshot of what was on the top of the page.
This is one of my favorites, too.
Recently. And it's called Spurious Correlations.
Oh, yeah.
And that's exactly what it does. And basically, all he did was, this is exactly the sort of thing that I was trying to encourage people to do when I set up SkepTools, was to build interesting things on the internet that would have a skeptical purpose. They don't have to, solve a million problems. They don't have to boil the ocean, as Reedy likes to say. And this site solves an interesting, not problem, but it illustrates a point very dramatically, in that we always talk about correlation does not mean causation. Sometimes it can lead you to discovering a correlation, but there are lots of correlations that have nothing to do with causation. They're just coincidences, or you may have the causation backwards, et cetera, et cetera. So what he did was he realized that there's all these public data sets out there, the Census Bureau, the CDC. If you look for it, there's tons of data out on the net. And so he grabbed a bunch of these data sets. Some of them are in data files that you can download. Some of them you have to do what's called scraping to pull it out of the files that are online. And he put it into a program that would basically let you take any two of these data sets and run a correlation against them and determine which ones actually match really well. And then he graphs the good ones, and he shows you the actual data and where the source came from, and he comes up with these wacky correlations. And this one that happened to be on the front page when I took the screenshot is that the amount of money that the U.S. spends on science, space, and technology correlates to a 99% degree with the number of suicides by hanging, strangling, or suffocation.
There you go.
Clearly,
we should encourage more suicides in order to get more science spending.
Clearly, science is a bad thing.
Right. And the classic one of these that you always see over and over is that the decrease in the number of pirates has led to global warming.
Yes.
That's the one that everybody repeats. But that's one of the beauties of this site is you can create new ones of these. You can click that link right at the top that says Discover a New Correlation, and you can go troll through the data sets that he has, and you can pick one, and then it'll tell you how it correlates. Here's one that I found that I liked. It's also space-related. It's worldwide non-commercial space launches. Correlates with the number of sociology doctorates that are awarded in the U.S.
Yes, that is awesome. Yes.
So the question is, are we shooting sociologists into space or something?
Well, once they get their doctorate, you kind of want to get rid of them.
Right.
And then they hang themselves a lot, so it works.
Right.
You know?
So I actually got in touch with this guy. Everybody was tweeting this all weekend. I got in touch with him through the email, and actually there's an about page on the site now. He's been adding to the site all weekend. So when it first started, it just had the correlations. It'll now do negative correlations too. I don't think it did when it first started. The next slide, if you go to it, is a negative correlation that proves that arresting kids for marijuana is what has caused all the bees to die. If we'd stop arresting kids for marijuana, we get our bees back.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Yes.
Now, aren't these generated on the fly? Doesn't he have this huge data set? So it's kind of like the postmodern essay generator.
Right.
These are just throwing up new things against the wall. Yeah.
Yep.
And you can go in there and dig around and find the weirdest combo you like. And he keeps putting tweaks in. Like, he's got a lot of rainfall data in there, and he kept finding that it would find that rainfall in one county was correlated with rainfall in the adjacent county. It's like, well, of course, the storm came over. But so he's got some adjustments for that to try to keep you from finding the obvious ones. But it's fun, and I suggested to him that the skeptics might here's the guy. This is Tyler Vegan. He recently put a picture of himself on the site. And this morning he set up a YouTube channel, and he has a little introductory video where he talks about why he created the site. I asked him if he was involved in skepticism, whether he goes to the Amazing Meeting or any of that stuff. He's not involved in any of it. He has a skeptical outlook. He is, I would describe him as a skeptic, but he's not involved in our stuff. And he just thought this was a cool idea. He used to do data analyst work in the military.
I was wondering what his background was.
And but he's actually a law student. He's actually a first-year law student at Harvard Law. But he's always been interested in this, and he knows a little bit of programming stuff. He knows how to build a website and program, to make those graphs and whatnot. So he threw this together because he found it interesting, and he's been tweaking it all weekend, adding negative correlations. There's now an RSS feed, so if you use an RSS reader, you can get all the new correlations. He had a vote function. From early on, it had a vote function where you could say, this one's not that interesting. Now you can vote up and down, so it keeps track of the ones people like the best, that are the most interesting ones, and those dumb ones, the rainfall versus rainfall ones, tend to get pushed down on the site. But yeah, it's fun. I've been asking, and it was interesting because Orac sort of wrote a blog post about this and sort of speculated about what would happen if he put stuff that skeptics run into all the time. Like, what if he put the autism figures in there, and people started because that's one of the classic ones we run into is vaccines cause autism, and they graph, here's the number of vaccines the kids get, and here's how much autism we're seeing. We could have him generate, honeybees or sociology degrees versus autism.
I've seen internet use. And other things like that.
Yeah,
right, but Orac had an interesting, sort of speculation about that. Would that be a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, would the autism people come in here and start finding new things to start being aghast about, or would some of them finally realize how stupid it is to be correlated?
I guess as long as they're ridiculous enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I have mixed feelings about, opening up data sets to whack-doodles. I mean, I love the idea that everybody has.
Well, this is exactly the danger.
To quote that, opening up data sets to whack-doodles.
This is exactly
Go ahead. I was going to come up with a band name. It's got to be a band name.
It's a great band name.
For whack-doodles.
But this is one of the double-edged. This is one of the edges of the sword of open science at all, and not just data sets. It's also science. Is interpreting what you're finding. Data mining, which is really what this is a serious problem within science. A lot of scientists do it and don't seem to see a problem with it. So I like this because it shows, if scientists are paying attention, it shows just how bad that is as a practice. It's a horrible practice, and yet you'll find articles where they admit to it, that are peer-reviewed, and a lot of times it's things that people don't admit to, but they probably you can kind of tell sometimes when you read the intro of an article that their theory was kind of written after their findings.
Yeah.
And it's tweaked,
That's
There's a
not
lot of
how it
that in
works,
psychology.
I don't think you understand what hypothesis means.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And there are people that don't see a problem with that.
It's a
And
revised hypothesis.
yeah, it is a revised hypothesis, but it's a pretty serious problem. There's a lot of lack of theory especially in the social sciences, that gets criticized, but in my opinion, not enough. And a lot of times they'll just hide it and kind of fudging.
Yeah. Well, there was a classic one that I loved.
When they came up with the theory.
Was it was a paper that their point they were trying to make was that there were a lot of people doing algorithmic stuff in biology, and they were trying to make the point of if you put garbage in, you get garbage out. And so what they did was there was some algorithm that somebody had that would say, okay, we have these sightings of animals, and based on the sighting and incidence of these sightings, we'll tell you what we think the range of this animal is, like where it actually lives. And so what they decided to do as their point in the paper was to put Bigfoot sightings in.
That's awesome.
And they generated the range of the North American Bigfoot.
Yeah.
But they inadvertently made an excellent point in the paper, because the range of the North American Bigfoot also seems to correspond almost exactly with the range of the North American brown bear.
Interesting.
So they were trying to show if you throw your garbage data just gets you a garbage result, here's the range of a non-existent animal, but it was like, oh, but wait a minute, you've actually found something there.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so that's a fun site. Go play with it.
It's a great idea. It's
and he's adding
much
data
fun.
sets, and he put an email address that you can email him. So if you have a favorite data set you'd like him to add, or maybe you want to warn him off that, feel free to send me an email.
Can I ask, as a non-computer person, now, like, what do you mean for like a data set? Like, is it a specific
it's a
format?
set of data.
I know it's a set of data, you silly person.
Yeah, well, obviously the way he's doing these, it tends to
has
be,
to do with data
some
entry
variable
checks.
over a year. So it has to be something where we've been keeping statistics over a period of years, like the last 10 years or something,
And
so
does it
that
have to be in
it'll
a
line
specific
up with the
format?
other. Huh?
Does it have to be in a specific format, or is he manually entering this?
I
or
think
how-
he's having to pull it in, because he's told me he originally had it all in a bunch of Excel spreadsheets, but now he's gotten it pulled into the programming language that he's using. So he just has it in the
Some
programming
data sets
language.
can just be downloaded in CSV form and things
little
like
bit of
that.
I was going to
So
say,
I
if
use
you
those all
get
the
your
time.
data, your cat correlation with food data, and you have it date stamped and put it in a CSV file, he can probably import it.
Yeah.
You
So
just
there you
you
go.
can just import it all into an SPSS file.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or combine
There you go.
SPSS files.
Yeah, I don't do computers, so.
You're on one right now. You know that, right?
I know, but
Just want to make sure you knew.
I do computers for dummies.
Yeah. Well, that's all I have. Go play with the site.
Yay! Awesome. New toys. I like new
love
toys.
new tools.
Love toys. Toys. Tools. What's the difference?
And skeptics build stuff like this.
Yep.
Build simple things that do one thing and do it
Yep.
well. They're fun.
Yep, and get
and,
someone on Engadget to cover it, and then you're set.
Yeah.
Okay, so next. Who's next? Oh, Barb's next. Barb's got pictures. This is all I know about what she's going to talk about, is that she's got pictures of cute doggies. And I'm looking
Just
for
a couple
cute
of them.
doggy pictures. So
Just a couple of them. Well, you can show the first one.
okay.
It's Bo.
Look, it's Bo.
Yes, it's Bo.
Aw, hey,
Unfortunately, Bo has died.
Aww.
Bo was 15,
Sad.
so he lived a good long life. But from the article, do we have the picture of Bo up? I don't see it.
Yep, Bo's up. Yeah,
Oh,
I think there's just some kind of delay in your
okay.
connection, but you just go with it.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I see it now. Okay, so from the article that's in the show notes, Bo does math, or did math, before he died. That was.
Linear algebra?
Actually, he probably calculus, because this is from the article. Ask him what the square root of 64 minus the square root of 16 plus 2 was. Arf, 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 Bo would reply, before most humans could arrive at the answer 6 in their own heads. Ask him algebra problems. If 3x equals 9, what does x equal? One of his owners, Dave Madsen, would ask Bo. Arf, 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 Bo would answer. Yes, it reads kind of like, Dick and Jane. Give him written questions to solve. Write 4 minus 1 on a piece of paper and show it to Bo, and he'll bark 3 times. Turn the minus into a plus sign, and he'll bark 5 times. Ask him math questions in Spanish. Ask him if you were golfing, playing a par 5, and made a double bogey, what your score was. Ask him to count the number of people in the room. Ask him how many were women. Ask him how many were men.
Can you
and
calculate
with that,
tip?
finally, I would think so. But with that last question, finally, you may have thought you caught him, because if there were 7 men in the room, Bo would bark 8 times. He always counts himself with the men, Dave Madsen would explain. You always knew when he was done with an answer, because with the final bark, his ears would shoot into an upright and locked position as he awaited his treat. It was always possible to stump Bo, however, because of one thing Madison forgot to cover with the lab. He's a black lab. The concept of zero. Ask him a question where that was the answer, and Bo would just start barking. So Bo's not alone. If you show the next picture, about 5 years ago, I wrote a blog post about this dog. This dog's name is Dave. Was Dave. Dave is also not with us any longer. But
you're just tearing through the dogs.
I know.
How many dogs are in one? Woof, 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 woof.
Plenty of math dogs, Bob. Plenty of math dogs. And this was about 5 years ago. This was actually, I think it was the very first post I ever wrote. When I was researching the post, I Googled math dogs. And I found oodles of dogs like this. There's Wawa the Pug, a Yorkshire named Shooter. And if you search YouTube for dog does math, that will bring up Kid, Jenny, Cinderella, Daisy, India, Gracie, Toby, and many others, different breeds, all doing the same trick. So, sound familiar?
I'm currently looking for a dog that does linear algebra. It's specifically frame transforms.
Dave supposedly did calculus, so I imagine he could do linear algebra. In fact, we can see him in. I have a video. Can we play video on this?
Yes, but with no sound. So.
With no sound.
It can be problematic if someone else owns it. If someone else owns it, we can get in trouble.
Okay.
Do you?
It's private, but yeah, I mean it's public, but it's the owner's video.
Yeah, I would.
Okay, I can walk you through what happens here. This is basically. I
generally stick to educational sources, so.
Well, this could be considered educational. This is for educational purposes, so it is fair use. Back.
So I got it. Yes, but it's you need to next time embiggen your video.
Sorry. Well, this is Dave doing order of operations at a school.
Oh wow.
And I actually wish you could hear it, because the kids cheer him on in a way that makes it a little obvious what's happening. They start counting with him as he paws.
He's barking. Bark.
So he's explaining order of operations, and now he's going to show it to the dog. And you can see what the dog does. You can catch these clips on
5, 6.
Stupid
7,
Pet Tricks.
8, 9.
Yes. The kids start chanting with him, start counting with him. And of course he gets it right.
Of course he does. Can he do math that his owner doesn't understand?
That's the key there. So this looks really familiar, right? I'll get to that actually. This looks really familiar, right?
Yep.
Does it look like the next picture?
Yep. That's the next picture.
Everyone know who this is? This next picture?
Clever Hans.
Yes, it's Clever Hans. So this is a phenomenon. I mean, you can find these math dogs all over the place. They've been on Letterman. They've been
That's
on.
not dog.
Yeah, that's not a
That's a big dog.
That's not a dog.
That's
No.
a
math
big
dog
dog.
I've ever seen.
It's the same idea. Clever Hans was a horse that, toured all over the place doing math, and he was tested lots of times. They found out that he could answer questions that were given by other people, so it couldn't have been the cues that the trainer was giving him, et cetera, et cetera. But their methodology was bad, and when they finally got somebody in with good methodology, what they discovered was that they needed to control the one variable that mattered, and that was what Brian said. Whether or not the questioner or the crowd knows the answer. And it doesn't have to be that they don't know how to do the math. It does have to be that they can't. You could do it so that they can't see the problem.
Yeah.
If it's written, because Hans could do written math problems as well. So not only are they saying that the dog can do math, but apparently the dog can read too. I mean, so if the owner and if nobody around the dog or the horse, in this case, knows what the answer is, then they fail. They fail miserably. They get confused. That's probably why the zero doesn't work, because there's no cue when to stop barking. The dog just knows it needs to bark, right? But what really bothers me, there's actually a great quote from the article. There were, of course, skeptics who believed that Madsen was signaling the answers to his dog, and the trouble was Madison could be in another state and Bo could still solve math problems for anyone willing to part with the treat. His favorite was this. He was a favorite of the Madsen neighbors on Mosquito Bay, wherever that is. But when I came across Dave, I wrote to Dave's owner, and I begged him to have Dave tested under controlled conditions, because what really bothered me was that these dogs are doing shows at schools. And they're doing it under the guise of getting kids excited about math. But what they're really teaching these kids is...
dogs can count?
Excuse me. Bull. They're teaching them that dogs can count. And they're missing the perfect opportunity to teach these kids some scientific thinking.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, how do you find out if the dog is really doing math? Well, that's scientific thinking. You control the variables that might explain what the dog is doing. And they tried to do that with Clever Hans. They even discuss it in this article that it can't be the owner giving him clues because other people can do it too. But they're not controlling for all of the variables. And you could have a discussion with these kids about what are they missing? What should they be doing that could tell you for certain? And the way that you do that is by thinking of all the possible things that the dog could be doing to get the answer. Yeah. And then eliminating them one by one, or
it has a calculator,
by controlling all of those variables. Yes, there's a cute.
It has a cyborg implant.
Images. That's so funny. When I was looking for images, I found a picture of Clever Hands with somebody photoshopped a calculator down there. But it's a fascinating phenomena because people are just enamored with this. I mean, the article even talked about all the offers that this dog had to go on television, on the Today Show and blah blah blah, and they didn't want to have to travel, so they just did local shows. But these dogs are all over the TV. They're all over the place. People love them, and they really believe they can do math.
What did the owner say when you?
The Dave situation. I wrote a whole blog post about it, so you can actually see the conversation I had. But he basically came back with answers, the answers you'd expect, defending him. Other people, people who are skeptics have been able to get him to do it just fine, and they've changed their minds. And if you saw it, you change your mind. But he basically ignores my points about how it could be done, how it could be tested. And by that point, the dog was so old he wasn't doing shows anymore. But I saw a blog post about it, and I left a comment on the blog because, I said, look, what you're doing is spreading some pseudoscience. And the response I got back from the woman was, well, I think the kids know that this is a trick. Sorry, that's a really dangerous assumption.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in her post to say that, you know.
This is a similar dilemma, I guess, with performers that do illusion or mentalism or magic or whatever you want to call it, where some performers they kind of walk the line between being a trick or trying to portray they actually have some kind of supernatural power. I guess in that context it's different because it's clearly a show and
it's entertainment. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
It's not at a school where they're presenting this as something that's just a quirky natural thing. I don't know. It seems
the day
like
that scientists came in and created a rabbit inside of a hat.
Yeah.
What I want to know is, could Hans or could any of these dogs bend spoons?
Good question. I did do a little research though about whether or not they could how much can we assume a dog knows about math, and it turns out that dogs can do some counting, at least some breeds.
They can set up a budget. They
can count to about 3. So if the budget includes 3, yeah, maybe 3 bones, they could put one aside, bury one, set one aside for tomorrow, and then eat one, and grow a bone tree. I don't know.
It's not exactly
minimum
counting,
wage for dogs really easy. So go ahead.
Some dogs, and I think they're usually border collies, that have incredible recall about their toys.
Yeah.
They know the words for, not that they can count their toys, but they know the words for their toys. Crazy.
And there was one who could figure out, based on a process of elimination, that the new toy had the name it didn't recognize.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, so
that's good. Yeah, and I've seen those tests done with
Wait a minute, and a sheep's missing. Border collies, they're very smart.
Yes.
But they can't. I mean, they've done some great research that they treat them very similarly to the way that they study them the same way that they study infants. Where they pay attention to what they're staring at and how long they're staring at things. And if they are expecting a number of things to grow, like they start with 1 and then 2 and then 3, and then they switch it up and they actually take one away, then they stare at it longer, and so they know that they can count to a point. But their limit seems to be about 3, and of course it's not all dogs. Probably only the smartest breed. But.
Not this dog.
Yeah, no. Doing calculus.
I just wanted to make it clear that I was serious about, if anyone has an animal that can do linear algebra, weasel, I was going to say cat, but, cats, they can do complex math, they just won't share it with you. Yes, so, no, I'm kidding.
Oh, I also saw some sort of study in that's about animals being able not to count, but know a quantity is larger than another quantity.
Dogs actually have a very difficult time with that. Not quantities, but size. They have a difficult time discerning size, which is interesting. If they can discern small differences in quantities, at least small quantities.
I bet if it was food, they would tell the size. Definitely.
Probably.
I think cats were able to do size, but not quantity as well, and dogs were able to do quantity, but I don't remember. It was like a week ago, so naturally I have no memory whatsoever, because I have less intelligence than your average border collie, for instance.
It is fascinating, though, isn't it? I think it's fascinating.
Very, very interesting. Thanks, Barb. A couple of funny comments by Blake on Twitter. If anybody does follow Dr. Atlantis on Twitter, he is always entertaining. Puntastic. It says he played tic-tac-toe with a chicken, and it did pretty well. I don't know the context of that one. Is it ethical to fake animal mathematicians? The audience is divided. I like that one. Yeah, thanks, Blake.
And I got one too.
It's a valid question, though.
Did you get the message? Please tell Barb to stop showing that sexy, sexy dog.
The one that was...
That was up for a while, I guess?
Yes.
He said he can't tweet that one because his boss follows him now.
Nice, nice. Okay, so let's see. Eve is next. And Eve is apparently going to talk about something really funny.
The Holocaust.
God! Too soon! God! God! Oh, this is going to end up in the next Brzezinski movie.
Yeah. Well, I saw the story on Doubtful News, which everyone, by the way, should go read just as soon as the show is over.
Apparently everyone on here does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the story is
This is why we have in association with Doubtful News at the end.
Yes, clearly.
The story isn't exactly new, but there has been an expensive development. A woman who wrote a fake Holocaust memoir, then successfully sued her one-woman publisher, has been ordered to repay the money she won, which was $22.5 million.
Wow.
It's Monique DeVale. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name.
DeVale.
Yeah, who goes by the name Misha De Fonseca, which I also don't know how to pronounce exactly. She and her husband moved to Massachusetts from France in the 1980s.
They are from France.
Yeah. And she began telling colorful stories about her past to pretty much anyone who would listen. One of the people who listened was Jane Daniel, who ran a small publishing firm. And Daniel convinced De Fonseca to write a memoir with the help of a ghostwriter. And that book, Misha, a memoir of the Holocaust years, was published in 1997. We have a picture of it.
Yes, there it is.
You'll notice something important about the cover of that book that we'll get to in just a moment.
It's a cute little fox.
The book didn't sell very well.
Count?
Does
that fox count?
Perhaps. The book didn't sell well in the U.S., but it was a huge success in Europe. It was made into a French film and an Italian opera. And what a story it was. When De Fonseca was 6, her Jewish parents were taken away by the Nazis. Young Misha was left to fend for herself. She traveled all throughout Europe in an attempt to find her parents, stealing scraps of food, slipping in and out of the Polish ghetto. And at one point she killed a Nazi who was trying to rape her, and this all occurred, between the time she was 6 and like 10 or 11. Eventually, she was adopted by a pack of wolves. That's the doggy creatures on the cover, who fed and cared.
So she might know what they say.
Yes. So if that story is properly operatic, the legal wranglings surrounding the publication of the book were more soap operatic. The ghostwriter, Vera Lee, was fired before the book was completed, and she sued for breach of contract. De Fonseca also sued Jane Daniel and Mount Ivy Press, and a judge found that Daniel had withheld royalty payments, hidden money in offshore accounts, and failed to market the book. De Fonseca and Lee won their suits. And then it was the research that Daniel did in an attempt to appeal the decision that revealed the fraud sort of for sure. However, some people were already skeptical and had raised objections, mentioning some of the dates were wrong, and also, oh my God, she claimed she was raised by wolves.
Well, have you read it?
Was it foxes or wolves? Because they look
wolves.
like
It's wolves.
Wolves.
Some questioned the book
They do look like
before
foxes.
it was published.
foxes, I believe.
Two people who were asked to write blurbs for the book warned the publisher that it was fantasy. Regardless, those people did not end up with blurbs on the book, but the book was published with blurbs from Elie Wiesel and the North American Wolf Foundation.
It's a very strange combination.
Yeah, I know. Well, so is her story.
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
And it sort of seems hard to believe how could it have gotten this far before it was revealed as a hoax, which originally was revealed as a hoax in around 2008. Because, again, she said she lived with wolves, and they fed her and protected her.
Is her middle name Remus?
Yeah.
I was going to ask if her name is a nickname Nell. No.
But I think part of the issue is that suggesting a Holocaust memoir is fake is a touchy business, although there actually have been several fakes. When Israeli paper Haaretz raised questions about the story, the director of the French film said, "That is exactly like the people who denied the existence of the concentration camps. This is a true story. Everything that happened during the Holocaust is unbelievable and impossible to grasp, and people therefore also find it difficult to believe this story." Because, I mean, you know, if the death camps are true, it naturally follows that anything anyone ever says about the Holocaust must be true, even if it involves wolves adopting children, because check your privilege, you anti-Semitic Israeli paper.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Anyway, Daniel discovered that, surprise, surprise, the book was in fact a fraud. Monique Duval was born...
She was raised by foxes.
Yeah.
See?
That's the
All I'm
weird
saying.
part of
Coyotes.
the story.
That's all I'm saying.
She was born in Belgium to Roman Catholic parents, so she's not Jewish. They were, however, actually arrested, deported, and executed by the Nazis because they were in the resistance. Duval says there were rumors that her father had revealed information to the Nazis under torture, and that she was called daughter of the traitor. So traumatic and dramatic, to be sure, and possibly fodder for an interesting memoir of a childhood during World War II in very difficult circumstances. However, unfortunately, that's not the memoir she wrote. She was taken in by her grandfather, and while Misha was fighting Nazis and living
Was
with
his name
wolves...
Wolfgang? Never mind.
No. While Misha was fighting Nazis and living with wolves, Monique was going to school in Belgium. Excuse me.
You're allergic to wolves?
It's okay. Just sip it down. We'll wait.
We'll embarrass Bob.
I think she just swallowed her uvula.
Yeah.
I think she's allergic to wolves. Or maybe it's lies. I don't know. One of those things.
One of those. Anyway, when confronted with evidence, she admitted the fraud, sort of. She says, "It's not true reality, but it is my reality." Take that, Adam Savage. This woman's living it.
That is classic.
Oh, but if she believes it, if it's her reality, it is reality.
Exactly. She
What, are you a
claims
postmodernist or something?
she has difficulty telling the difference between real reality and her fantasy world. And in the most recent legal case, which is the third, the judge concluded that it didn't matter whether that particular claim is true, that she believed it. It only really matters that the claims in the book aren't true. So she doesn't, get the money from the publisher. Duval also tried to blame Daniel, the publisher. She said, "At first, I didn't want to publish, and then I let myself be talked into it by Jane Daniel. She made me believe, and I believed it." However, she'd been telling the story long before she met Daniel. On the other hand, Daniel had been warned that the book was BS and chose to ignore those warnings and publish anyway, until she was ordered to pay a lot of money over some questionable practices for this obviously bogus book. And it is difficult to tell to what extent Duvall believed her own story. She began telling the story at a Massachusetts synagogue, so she seems to have been actually playing the part of a Jew, and for a long time. She says, "Ever since I remember, I felt Jewish," which is funny because ever since I can remember, I felt Zoroastrian. I don't know why, I just have. Anyway, she also apparently feels very strong.
I'm sorry. Oh gosh, we're gonna hear from the Zoroastrians, aren't we?
She also feels a really strong connection with animals. At a memorial service, she asked her rabbi to light a candle for the animals, and she commissioned a 2-hour-long video tribute to her dead dog, who could do math.
Where's hat?
And that's actually how she met her publisher. So it may be that she is fantasy prone and over empathizes with animals and Jewish people. On the other hand,
Should we rephrase that? Oh God!
I know that sounds, but she did. She possibly because of her experiences during World War II and her feelings about her parents, she really does have this strong, apparently strong empathy with Jewish people that has led to sort of a fantasy life. I don't know. On the other hand, her attorney went to New York to scare off writer Blake Eskin when they heard that he was looking into her story. So, you know. A number of people, including Emerita virtual skeptic Sharon Hill at Doubtful News, suggested it would have been better if Duvall had just published her story as fiction. But I suspect it actually wouldn't have done well as fiction. It wouldn't have been believable as fiction because wolves. So it had to be published as truth. I know that seems like it doesn't make sense.
Counterintuitive, yeah.
But I swear it's true.
You know, it's likely
I agree.
playing off the idea that there are people who were raised by animals. That's a pre-existing myth that's out there.
Right.
So
some animal behaviorists or animal experts also, read it and went, it wasn't just the historical things that weren't true, which also is a problem, that it had all the stereotypes that aren't real about
wolves?
About children being raised by wolves.
Oh, okay.
All the Tarzan elements. Right?
That sort of narrative. Good news, though. Although Oprah Winfrey taped a segment with Duvall at Yes, a Wolf Sanctuary, it never aired, so Oprah didn't come off looking like a total idiot again.
It would have been awesome if they're like at a wolf sanctuary, and the wolves like hate her.
Yeah,
like
there were pictures of her at the wolf sanctuary, or with wolves in the background.
So that would have been a four-peat for Oprah, wouldn't it? Like that would have been the fourth time.
I think that would have been the fourth one. I think, fake memoir, fake autobiography.
At some point, Oprah can't drag these people out in front of crowds anymore and scold them. She is one gullible person.
And the second Holocaust memoir too.
Yeah.
Because there was another one. I mean, there were several other, but there was another one.
It was somebody who was raised by canary.
Yeah.
Canary? I thought it was weasels.
Weasels.
I wish I was raised by weasels. There was a couple. Oh yeah. Questions. No, I'm not going to read any of these questions. I'm sorry, guys. The show's going long. I think we're just going to wrap up the show. We got like a few administrative things. Let's see. You guys get your... Oh, we got to do the trivia question. Let's do that first. Tim.
Oh, yeah. Trivia question was about skeptical awards. There's an award called the In the Trenches Award. What event is that award given out at every year. And Mark R. Price was the first one to get it.
Congratulations.
Nathan and Amanda also got it. It's
Yeah.
the Skeptics Toolbox, which is held in Eugene, Oregon every August. It's sponsored by CFI and Ray Hyman and Jim Alcock and Lindsay Byerstein and a bunch of other great folks do basically a skeptic workshop, how to be a skeptic.
Yeah. I get the mailers for this all the time, but I've never been able to make it out for this, but it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's one coming up this year, as usual, August 7th through 10th.
And I guess technically that Bill, that's product placement. That's someone on Twitter. The other half of our trivia-ish kind of thing is the videos on the monitor. I'm tilting my head so everybody can see, because apparently I've been holding my head in front of one of the monitors.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of people got Zardoz, which is on my right monitor. I guess it's not the opposite
The
for you guys.
owl word one?
Yes, the one with the owl. The other one, which I'm kind of surprised no one got, is actually Blake did get it with help from his wife.
I'm surprised you didn't get it, Brian.
Yeah.
It's Flash Gordon. Yes. Why was I?
Flash!
Which there was a recent story online that kind of goes into some of the background on how that was produced. I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
I wanted to rewatch it because of that. So cool. Next up, we got some announcements, and guys, find your books. Quick! We're running out of time.
I'm ready.
Let's see here. TAM 2014 is coming, and that means grant programs are looking for donors and looking to hand out free tickets. One for teachers and one for rising stars of skepticism. The websites are ICBS Everywhere, which might sound familiar, and another one is risingstar.sarahmayhew.com. These also will be in the show notes, so you can find them later. Bob has a segment on Skepticality this week. If you don't know what Skepticality is, it's a really cool podcast. Go check it out.
An award-winning podcast.
I know. It's been around almost as long as podcasting. It's about pyramids, of course. Again, about the pyramid story he started covered last week. No, Tim. Tim, you're on Skepticality this week.
No,
What's up with that, man?
I am slacked out.
I'm
Where was the robots this week?
The robots. I'm cutting the robot segment. I'm sorry because we're already 10 minutes over time. So who's going first with books? Go, Bob, since your mouth is open.
Okay. Although women had obtained leadership positions at various levels in the field of education, that profession also evidenced a backlash against women in its ranks, a reaction that originated in the last decades of the 19th century. This backlash has been so well documented by historians of education that it's not necessary to reiterate a detailed account here. Nevertheless, the following paragraphs briefly detail its origins and key features, not only because they framed an important context for subsequent developments in science education, but because similar societal concerns have reemerged within the last decade, a trend that is briefly touched on in the conclusion of this book.
Okie doke, who's next? I'm going to skip over to Barbara. Go ahead.
Okay. So you might ask, how is a trick horse related to psychological research? Purely coincidental, by the way. Well, the Clever Hands findings point out the possibility that observers often have specific expectations or biases that may cause them to send covert and unintentional signals to a subject being studied. These signals then may cause the subject to respond in ways that are consistent with the observer's bias and consequently confirm their expectations. What all this finally boils down to is that an experimenter may think a certain behavior results from his or her specific treatment of one subject or one group of subjects compared with another. Actually, it may result from nothing more than the experimenter's own biased expectations. If this occurs, it renders the experiment invalid. This threat to validity of psychological experimentation is called the experimenter expectancy effect.
Expectancy. Go ahead, Eve.
It was supposed, and afterwards demonstrated, that the Barrow Cemetery had been robbed nearly flat through cultivation, so that plowed by farmers, looted by treasure seekers, tunneled by rabbits, scrambled by bracken, and shot at by the army, which trained there in the war, the site had been sadly impoverished by the by time and neglect. I'll be brief.
Okay. Tim, go.
Chapter 0, Aliens Suck at Music. And it's not for lack of trying. They've been at it for eons, but have yet to produce even a faintly decent tune. If they had, we'd have detected them ages ago. We've been scanning the skies for signs of intelligent life for generations, after all, and we've actually picked up thousands of alien anthems, slow dances, and ballads, but the music's so awful that it's always mistaken for the death rattle of a distant star. It's seriously that bad.
I think I know this book. I think I know this book.
That's awesome.
Yes, I think I know this book. It was pretty good. Let's see. Lang jumped lightly down from the wagon. He was about 5'10", dark, and on the skinny side. His clothes bore no rank badges of any sort, but he carried himself like a soldier. I usually get 2 questions at a time like this, he said. The first one is, why don't you teach everyone yourself? Sorry, but we haven't the manpower. Today, my friends, I am working with General Kirkland's brigade. That's you people, the 11th North Carolina and the 26th North Carolina and the 44th North Carolina, blah, 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 blah. Tomorrow we'll be with General Cook's brigade and so on. You'll manage. You have to be more than stupid to screw up an AK-47. You have to be an idiot, and even then it's not easy. Go, Bob.
So mine was The Science Education of American Girls, A Historical Perspective by Kim Tolley, and a very cool image of a mother and daughter looking at the moon through a telescope on the frontispiece.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Barb?
Mine was 40 Studies That Changed Psychology. It's a very thin text, but it's one I recommend everybody read, and it's usually read in intro psych or in experimental classes. Yeah, it is awesome.
Who's the author?
It's Roger Hawk, this edition. There's several editions.
Okay, awesome. Eve.
The Age of Sutton Hoo by Martin Carver.
Sutton Hoo. It's fun to say. Okay, Tim.
Mine was Year Zero.
Yeah, I thought it was that book.
By Rob Reed, which I had to find an excerpt on online because I actually read the audio or
the audiobook, which is done by John Hodgman.
John Hodgman, highly recommended.
Yes.
Very funny. If you know anything about copyright law and the music industry trying to shut people down, it's a science fiction story that takes advantage of that. And basically the aliens pirate all our music and owe us trillions of dollars.
I enjoyed it. His read was really good. And coincidentally, I'm actually going to go see him perform this week.
Oh yeah,
in DC. Yeah, he's playing the Birchmere. My book was fiction, Guns of the South, by a well-known alternate history writer Harry Turtledove. This story, time travelers, racist time travelers go back in the past and give the Southern Army AK-47s. And change.
That's the type of thing that they do.
Yes, it's plausible. It's very plausible. On that note, we are way over time. I really apologize for the robots. Just to throw out an idea that I've been toying around in my head, I'm going to probably do a robot apocalypse blog at some point. If anybody wants to help me aggregate stuff onto that, I would love suggestions and help, and do that in conjunction with the show. Logo and music, and thanks for watching.
All right.
Dance, people, dance.
We're dancing. We can't see it.
Virtual Skeptics is an production of whatstheharm.net, Skeptic Communities, myself, and Doubtful News. Our logo was designed by Sarah Mayhew at sarahmayhew.com. Our theme music is by Tremor and used with permission. We have no responsibility for the dancing skill.